Welcome to the 10,000 Buddhas Monastery. Today I'm gonna tour you around here. So while showing you the Buddhas, I'm gonna say the history about it. The history begins at 1951 to 1965. The monastery was founded in 1951 by the Venerable Pai, who moved to Hong Kong from mainland China almost 2 decades before in 1933 to proselytize the teachings of Buddhism. The site previously housed a temple to Kunyam, where a nun was killed during World War II. After the land was purchased by the owner of a local tobacco company, he consequently donated it to Yudkai for the purpose of establishing a Buddhist college. This, however, did not come to fruition, and the monastery was built in its instead. Its foundation took place 2 years after the communist victory and takeover of the mainland. Yudkai and his followers carried out the building by hand and personally transported supplies from the base of the hill. This endeavor was funded through donations from the lay public. The construction of the monastery was eventually completed in 1957, although the installation of Buddhist statues throughout the monastery complex continued into the new millennium. Yudkai died in 1965, 8 years after the monastery first opened. An apocryphal story written by his followers claims that his body was found to be incorruptible 8 months after his death, a result of the seated lotus position he was buried in. However, newspapers maintain that he was in fact embalmed. His intact body is exhibited in the main hall of the monastery. After the founder's death, 1965 onwards, unlike an actual monastery, the 10,000 Buddhas Monastery does not have any monks living on site. The complex is instead maintained by lay people. After Yudkai's death, his nephews assumed the rule of overseeing the maintenance of the building. It was at this time that the monastery began to decline in popularity. This was partly owing to the disruption caused by the construction of the Shatin new town during the 1970s. Renovations to the monastery buildings were subsequently carried out in 1982, 1997, and 2005. The latest renovation was described by the Antiquities Advisory Board as having compromised the building's historic authenticity. On July 2, 1997, a day after the handover of Hong Kong to China, a mudslide measuring more than 400 cubic meters struck around the site of the monastery. It was caused by 4 days of heavy rainfall that was equivalent to almost half the city's average annual rainfall of 2.25 meters. The slide buried the house of Mashuk Fung, the 73-year-old caretaker of the temple, who had assumed the position exactly a year before. She was reported missing that same day, although the Fire Services Department requested the government flying service to dispatch a helicopter as part of the rescue bid. The plan was subsequently abandoned due to darkness. A helicopter carrying a small digger was deployed to the site the following day, but the area's challenging terrain, namely the unstable mud and the narrow path encompassing the monastery, severely hindered rescue efforts. Ma's body was finally retrieved 4 days later. A coroner later ruled that her death by suffocation under the mud was accidental, but expressed unease over the condition of slopes and pushed for stricter laws to be implemented. The Civil Engineering Department published 2 independent reports in March 1998, revealing that the upkeep of the hillside overlooking the monastery was inadequate. This was partially attributed to the government's method of cutting slopes. The incident resulted in the closure of the monastery for 3 years to carry out repair work on the surrounding slopes in 3 stages. Each phase cost more than 1.5 million Hong Kong dollars. This outlay was covered by donations from the public, since the monastery does not charge an admission fee for visitors. The lay custodians eventually requested 6 million Hong Kong dollars. By March 2000, 2 small slopes had been overhauled, but work on the larger, more dangerous slopes had yet to begin. The monastery blamed excessive red tape on the part of the buildings department for putting off approval of the reconstruction works. Although the temple was partially opened again a few months after the mudslide, the entire complex was not reopened until July 31, 2000. It can now choose to close in the event of heavy rain. As you can see now, this is very accessible by stairwell consisting of 431 steps, and these are surrounded on both sides by statues of Arhats, the Buddhist equivalent of saints who have achieved enlightenment. They were produced by artists from Yunnan and Guangdong provinces and are modeled after ones situated at a temple in Kunming, the hometown of founder Yut Kai. In total, there are close to 13,000 Buddha statues at the monastery. This is in spite of the temple's 10,000 title. So I think it's enough for now about the history. Alam ko naboboard na kayo guys. Wala lang talaga akong maisip na sabihin. So ito na, dito na tayo sa main plaza. Ito yung temple. Yan, may mga dragons. Sa loob yan, may mga maliliit na may maliliit na statues. Pero hindi kami pwedeng pumasok. Yun. Ito siya, main hall plaza. The main plaza, I mean. Yan, makikita nyo. Puntahan natin yung Puntahan natin ang pagoda. Ito din mga main attraction dito sa main plaza. Buddhas. Ito, may mga din, may mga namamasyal din. Ayan. Yan ang pagoda. May mga Buddhas pa rin sa gilid. Iba't iba. Hindi ko lang alam kung para saan sila ng mga Buddhas. Yan. O, diba? Ang ganda. Itong na to, pagoda na to is around 9 stories high. 9 stories. Ganun kalaki. So, ayan guys, iikutin na lang natin. Sobrang dami ng mga Buddhas nila. So ngayon wala masyadong tao kasi dahil sa mga nangyari 'di ba sa buong mundo, pero ayan, may restrictions dito kaya konti lang yung namamasyal. Ayan. Ang dami, 'di ba? Ikutin ko na lang. Yan, doon pa balik tayo doon sa balik tayo doon sa dinaanan natin kanina kasi may paakyat pa may paakyat pa. Puntahan natin yung maya-maya. Ito, tingnan nyo dito sa both left and right sides. May mga Buddhas. Yan. Ito, hindi sila mga gold, pero nasa sila, nakakulong sila sa glass na glass panel. Ayan. Panoorin nyo ang aking video. Yan dyan. Ito may pinto na doon. Souvenir shop. Papasukin ko yan mamaya. Ayan, balik tayo sa dinaanan natin. Aakyat tayo. We'll see kung ano ang nandoon pa. Marami pa yata. Pero itong dito sa kabilang hagdan, under renovation, nakasara. Marami pa talaga, tingnan nyo, marami pa talaga siya. Pero sa tingin ko kailangan na din ng repaint, diba? Medyo matagal na rin ata to. Matagal nang hindi na repaint. Siguro hindi na rin na maintain kasi ilang buwan na rin na may mga restrictions. Kaya ganito siguro yung itsura. Yan, akyat tayo. Tingnan natin kung anong nandoon pa. Ayan. Yan, under construction pa, renovation. Ito dito, Ito, sila nagdadasal, kaya bawal kami pumasok sa labas na lang. Ayan. Puntahan natin doon sa kabilang side, punta tayo. So, ito ang itsura dito, guys. Ayan. Marami pa rin mga Buddhas. Halos lahat yata dito na side mga babae. Ito, marami silang dito, prayer hall. Ayan. Tingnan nyo ang view. Di pa kitang-kita yun sa kabila. Kitang-kita yun mga buildings. Ayan. Ayan. Meron pa nakahilera dito. Pero ito na yata yung pinakatuktok. Ayun dito doon sa may maliit na hagdan, may ginagawa pa rin sila doon ng mga bagong statues. Pero hindi pa tapos, kaya huwag na natin puntahan. So ayan guys, hanggang dito na lang ako. Thank you for watching, and if you are new here, please to subscribe my channel. And please click the notification bell, dapat all, para ma-notify ka kung may upload ako na bagong video. Goodbye! See you next time! Bye bye bye!